I don't think the marching band was a huge factor in deciding where I went to college, but once I found out that UVA did have a marching band, I was very interested. I had done marching band all through junior high and high school, and it seemed like the natural thing to keep going, and I was interested in having sort of a different experience than I did in high school because I came from a really small town, like an 80-person band. So I was definitely interested in trying it out. I almost didn't join because I was nervous that it was going to take up too much time and I wasn't going to have enough time to study and keep my grades up and things like that, but that was never a problem. And of course, once you get to college, you're doing all sorts of other activities, so I'm really glad that I went ahead and joined. So I think I actually emailed Emily Cubbin and expressed that concern, and she wrote back to me because she had been writing to all the first years who had expressed interest in trying to convince us to come on, and she sort of talked me into it and told me it was going to be okay, so I went ahead and joined. It definitely made an impact on my experience just because when you start off, you already have this huge network of people. When you start your first year, most people come in complete strangers to everyone, completely lost, and a C&B member comes in with a week worth of experience, with all these great people and an entire section that is, focused on you and helping you get started in your first year. So you sort of have this family and this network of friends that you start off with right out of the gate, and that just sort of improves everything, and it grows every year. And sort of having that constant of, every Tuesday and Thursday night going to practice, and it's just something that you sort of plan your week around, kind of helps you with discipline and planning your studies around those sorts of things. I don't think it's good to have like complete freedom to get all your obligations taken care of. It's nice to have some commitments throughout the week. The band was still pretty young when I joined in 2005. It had just been around for 1 year, and I think I looked at the website, if the website existed back then, a little bit, but beyond that I hadn't really experienced the band in any capacity. My parents were pretty excited, looking at the materials and things before I went in. But my first experience was band camp, and my mom had just dropped me off with all my belongings because I was coming in from out of state, and it was my first college experience whatsoever beyond orientation, and I walk into the lobby of the English Inn, and there are just people everywhere. They're like up in the rafters, and they've all got their matching t-shirts, and they're all chanting and cheering, and they find out what my name is, and they all cheer for me and cheer my name, and they start doing these crazy chants, and I was just like so overwhelmed, but it was also really exciting because it just seemed like this great energy and a wonderful group that was just very welcoming. And that was like my first impression, was just like, wow, they really want me here. And it was pretty exciting. All girls except for Justin Starr. That's right. my first year in 2005. I think that was the theme of our skit that year at band camp, was that Justin was slowly transforming into a woman because he was surrounded by girls all the time. Very original, I know. Yeah, it was always fun in the years after that to actually start getting some guys in. I guess, I don't know, I don't really consider French horn to be like a more feminine instrument or anything like that, so I'm not sure why the lack of guys or the overwhelming amount of women, but it was always good to have more diversity in the group, I think, and it was a different dynamic once it started switching over that way, and it was better, I think. At least when I was there, his leadership was, we all sort of got along already, but then, every year before band camp, leadership would get together, get some ice cream, get dinner, something like that, and sort of outline our goals for the year and how we were going to be effective leaders for the group and how we were going to try and keep morale up throughout the year and, always strive for that excellence as a group. And, I think band camp is really sort of the pivotal moment for that atmosphere to grow, where you have all these first years coming in, you have people coming back, and you sort of nurture that, teamwork spirit and always striving to do our best kind of a feeling. And, it's our job as leadership to keep that going throughout the year, through the tough times. We had a mission statement. Every year we would look at our mission statement and revise it. So I think we started that my second year. We had a little index card that we wrote down, we the horn section, and constant and never-ending improvement and things like that. And we would, before band camp, we'd make little bags for each of the members with some goodies and pencils and things like that in there, and we would put our mission statement on an index card in there, and we'd all read it together during band camp. So I think part of it is not being afraid to be sappy and sentimental about things like that, and not being embarrassed by it, to just, totally embrace it, and I think we were all a better section for it. I think the most challenging parts for me were times when I could see that my section was struggling, and maybe it's below freezing outside and it's November and we're trying to work out on the turf field to get the show ready for the next day or things like that, and people are grumpy and their fingers are cold, and you just have to try and keep morale up and keep people from fighting with each other and getting angry and upset. I think those are the toughest times, just because it can be grating to try and be positive all the time and encouraging and things like that. We had kind of a big fallout second year where we lost a lot of people, and we had a really small incoming group of first years, and that was kind of a shaky period for us, because it just sort of felt like the loyalty wasn't there, or sort of the spirit of the section that we kind of went on to grow wasn't quite there yet. And it can be hard when it feels like maybe not everybody's really into it, and maybe some people don't want to be there at all. Or like if someone that you thought was really invested maybe switches to another section the next year, or just quits the band completely the next year, that can kind of be a bummer. But in the end, you just want people who want to be there as much as you do. So I think that next year, I guess that was 2007, we had a really, really good group of first years come in, and they were just enthusiastic and fun, and we all had a good time together, and that kind of continued on from there. So when I first came in, I think some of the traditions were still getting established, and that was really fun. I don't know if that's still happening now or not, if it's still sort of, I'm sure it evolves over time no matter what, but everything was still pretty fresh when I came in. I was a drum major in high school, and that's sort of when I learned about myself that I liked being in a leadership role, and that I was a little bit good at it. But doing that in the CMB with a smaller group, just being the section leader or DI for a group of 10 to 20, that was really a different experience, and I kind of understood more about myself about leading a team. A small team like that was something that I really enjoyed. I loved seeing the first years come in and start out really shy, and then you sort of see their strengths show as the year goes on, and just trying to positively impact a group of that size is something that I probably wouldn't have learned about myself if I hadn't done leadership through CMB, and that's something that I'm still sort of looking for in my work and in my day-to-day life, is sort of feeling that desire to continue that sort of a role and find that in work. The CMB had a huge impact on my life because I met my husband there. We were introduced by a mutual friend, Preston Gish, at band camp, like the second or third day, and at move-in day we saw each other and realized we were living in the same dorm, so it was kind of cool to already know somebody there, and we knew we had a lot of similar interests already, so we started chatting on AIM all the time back when that was still a thing. This was barely, Facebook barely existed at this point. We played Dorm Assassins together, we just started hanging out and getting dinner a lot together and things like that, and then we started dating pretty quickly, and he left the band after second year, but fourth year after the band banquet he proposed. And so then we got married, and we've been together 8 years now, I guess, married for 4, so that's a pretty big impact. And it was always fun, when he was still at the CFB, it was fun having him there and being together all the time. We went and picked out the ring together and everything, so it wasn't a surprise by any means, but, well, the fact that he was going to propose wasn't a surprise, but he did surprise me, when and how he did it. So I was getting ready for the banquet that night, and he was, at my dorm, and then we left together, and he secretly unlocked my door so that it would still, let him back in after I left, and then he drove me to the banquet, and then came back, and he decorated my room and got flowers and all that stuff, and then when he picked me up for the banquet and took me back up, it was all decorated, and he surprised me and proposed. For me, my favorite memories are always just with the people. You can ask me about my favorite songs or my favorite visuals or things like that. I'm not really going to remember most of that, because that's not really what the experience was ever about for me. It was always just looking forward to seeing those people every week, and after a long summer, getting to spend a whole week with them, just having fun and doing crazy stuff. And everything at band camp, winning Section Olympics 2 years in a row is a pretty good memory. Just seeing your section come together like that, these people that maybe don't even know each other when they first walk in the door, but learn to work together in such a short amount of time. I think a lot of my best memories are the band camp experiences. My favorite part of band camp every year, and I always tell everybody this, was the first years coming in. Well, first it was just seeing everybody that you hadn't seen all summer coming back in and hugging everybody and all that. But then, seeing these frightened small first years walk in and you're just like so excited and you're probably overwhelming them so much with your excitement, and then they're all shy, even the ones that turn out to be totally crazy personalities. They all start off shy, and you get them in there, you get them in the practice room, and just slowly over the week you see like, oh, he's really shy, but he's also hilarious, and oh my god, she's the most amazing horn player I've ever heard, and wow, that person's really helpful, to the other people. And just sort of seeing their personalities emerge as they get more comfortable within the group, and especially with all the challenges that they give us during band camp week with like Section Olympics and having to write a skit together and just like all this wild stuff. That's when you really start seeing people's personalities shine through, and seeing what their strengths are, and beyond just sort of like the fun stuff like, oh, they're funny or whatever. Throughout the season, really seeing people sort of step up into not necessarily a leadership role, but just sort of a exemplary role of doing their job really well, helping out the people around them, being responsible. That was always what I really enjoyed, was seeing these people evolve into stronger people and people that you can rely on. I really liked watching that happen. I always liked the Paint the Town Orange. That was one of the events I always looked forward to every year, just because you really get to feel the energy of the community, and it's kind of in their face a little bit. I like to perform that way, like, you're kind of used to people sort of getting up at halftime and leaving sometimes to go get food and things like that, but you march in through the downtown mall and look at us, stop what you're eating, stop what you're doing, you're gonna listen. I like the high energy events. Since you sort of put so much energy in it yourself, it's nice to have that reflected back in a more intimate setting. Nashville was awesome. That was 2005 and 6. We were there over New Year's, I think. And we got to do that awesome parade, street battle with the Minnesota band, and Alchez, the trumpet guy from the Letterman show, was there for some reason and was like our MC for the night. And we just had this huge energetic band battle, and all the fans were all around, and my parents were there, and my grandpa, and it was just too cool. I don't know, we felt like, not celebrities, but it was fun. It was a different kind of performance atmosphere. And then the Gator Ball was a lot of fun because we got to run around Universal Studios all day with your good friends. I was remembering kind of a sentimental memory from that bowl game. It was almost the end of the game, and I had to leave early because I was flying back home instead of driving up to Virginia like everybody else. And so I think it was Itzior came over and said, it's time to go. We need to go drive everybody to the airport that's flying out. And I turned around to say goodbye to everybody, and I realized that this is right before I went to study abroad in Japan for a year. And so Whitney Hassler is standing there, and I realized, like, oh my god, I'm not going to see Whitney again, and she's going to graduate, and I'm going to go back to UVA, and she's not going to be there. We just sort of both had that moment where we were like, oh my god. We hugged, and it was really like bittersweet, and just saying goodbye to everybody for a semi-extended period of time was very sentimental, and I remember that sometimes.